I traced my fingers along the silk fabric, feeling its perfect weight and drape. This would be the centerpiece of my new collection, if I could keep my brand alive long enough to show it. Miss Harrison? My assistant Kate poked her head into my studio. Your mother called again. They're expecting you for dinner at 7. I glanced at the clock. 6:30 p.m. Another carefully orchestrated family dinner at Marcus Wellington's mansion, where my stepfather would undoubtedly find new ways to belittle my dreams. Thank you, Kate. Could you make sure the lookbook photos are ready for tomorrow? And confirm our meeting with the influencer agency? Already done, she smiled, then hesitated. Are you sure about keeping the Paris plans quiet? Your family might be more supportive if they knew. I shook my head, carefully folding the silk. Marcus would only try to interfere. Better they think Isabella Harrison Designs is struggling. It makes tonight's performance more convincing. The truth was, my little boutique had outgrown its humble beginnings months ago. What started as a small atelier in Brooklyn had evolved into something much bigger, though I'd carefully hidden the evidence. Every time Marcus's spies reported back about my empty shop, I was actually meeting with luxury buyers in private showrooms. When he gloated about my amateur designs, major fashion editors were already fighting to feature them. But tonight, I needed to play the struggling designer one last time. The Wellington mansion loomed before me, all marble columns and old money arrogance. Marcus had bought it with my father's insurance money after marrying my mother, though he preferred everyone forget that detail. I smoothed my deliberately simple dress, one of my designs, but understated enough that Marcus wouldn't recognize it, and rang the bell. Darling, my mother answered, all perfect makeup and nervous energy. You're just in time. Marcus has big news. I bet he does, I thought, kissing her cheek. I'd heard whispers about his plan to launch his own luxury brand, building off his success in mass-market retail. He'd been poaching designers and manufacturers for months, though he didn't know I had friends in every atelier he'd approached. The dining room was a monument to Marcus's idea of success. Crystal chandelier, antique furniture, and precisely arranged place settings that no one dared disturb. My younger half-sister Sophia sat quietly, tapping her phone under the table. At 16, she was already learning to navigate Marcus's moods. Isabella. Marcus didn't bother standing as I entered. I trust your little shop isn't keeping you too busy for family obligations. I took my seat, noting how he positioned me directly across from him. Classic power play. Never too busy for family. Excellent. He smiled, all teeth and no warmth. Because we need to discuss your future. The staff served dinner. Elaborate French cuisine that Marcus barely touched while holding court. He loved an audience, especially a captive one. I've been reviewing the family's investments, he began, swirling his wine. Your mother and I have decided it's time for some changes. My mother flinched slightly. We both knew she hadn't decided anything. Your boutique, Marcus continued, has been draining resources for 2 years now. The foot traffic reports are abysmal. Your social media engagement is laughable. And those designs, he shook his head. Let's be honest, Isabella. You're embarrassing the family name. I took a small bite of salmon, letting him build to his crescendo. Therefore, I'm cutting your funding. It's time to close up shop and join the real world. In fact, his smile widened. I'm launching a new luxury fashion line. Wellington Haute Couture. I could use someone with your basic understanding in a junior position, under proper supervision, of course. Sophia's phone clattered to the floor. She knew how hard I'd worked, how many nights I'd spent perfecting my craft, while Marcus built his empire on cheap knockoffs. "That's very thoughtful," I said carefully, watching my mother's face fall at my apparent surrender. "When do you need my decision?" "Decision?" Marcus laughed. "I'm not offering a choice, Isabella. The boutique's lease, your equipment, even your supply contracts. Who do you think has been underwriting all that? I own everything you've built." I stood slowly, placing my napkin beside my barely touched plate. "I see. Then I suppose I should go pack up my studio." "Don't be dramatic," Marcus sighed. "Stay, finish dinner. We're family after all. Tomorrow, my team will handle everything." I kissed my mother's cheek, whispered "Watch the news tomorrow" in Sophia's ear, and walked out of the mansion for the last time. In my car, I finally allowed myself to smile. Marcus was right about one thing. Tomorrow would change everything. He just didn't know that his family obligation had outmaneuvered him at every turn. My phone buzzed. A message from Kate. "Influencer contracts signed. Celebrity fittings confirmed. Paris guest list finalized. And Marcus's team just tried to access our real financial records." Perfect. Let him think he found all my secrets. I drove to my real studio, not the decoy boutique Marcus had been watching, but the converted warehouse in Manhattan's garment district where my team was putting the finishing touches on the collection that would debut at Paris Fashion Week. The collection that would make Isabella Harrison Designs a global luxury brand. And if Marcus thought he could steal it, he was about to learn that his stepdaughter had inherited more than just her father's talent for design. She'd also inherited his business acumen and his lawyers. Tomorrow would prove exactly who was embarrassing whom. The next morning dawned crisp and clear. Perfect weather for watching an empire crumble. I sat in my real studio's control room surrounded by screens showing security feeds from both locations. On one monitor, Marcus's acquisition team was breaking into my decoy boutique, smugly photographing the intentionally mediocre designs I'd left as bait. On another, celebrities were quietly entering my real studio through the private entrance. "They found the fake financial records," Kate reported, watching the feed. "And the secret notebook with the terrible sketches. How long until they realize none of the real equipment is there?" She checked her watch. "Given their competence level? Hours. But it won't matter by then." She was right. At exactly 9 a.m., my carefully orchestrated plan began unfolding across social media. First, Victoria Chen, Hollywood's newest A-list actress, posted a photo in one of my designs at her movie premiere. "Obsessed with my at Isabella Harrison Designs gown. Can't wait to wear more at #Paris Fashion Week." 10 minutes later, pop superstar Jade Martinez shared a video of her final fitting in my studio. Isabella Harrison isn't just a designer, she's an artist. This collection is going to change fashion forever. By 9:30, my name was trending worldwide. My phone buzzed. "Marcus." I let it go to voicemail, focusing instead on the real work ahead. In the main studio, 30 skilled artisans were putting final touches on the collection. Each piece represented months of innovation, combining traditional craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. The centerpiece, a hand-embroidered gown with fiber-optic threads that changed color with the wearer's movements, had already been purchased by 3 major museums. "Miss Harrison," one of my seamstresses called out, "the Vogue team is here for the exclusive preview." I nodded, watching Anna Wilson, the magazine's formidable editor, enter with her entourage. She'd been one of my earliest supporters, recognizing the potential in my designs long before the celebrities and influencers. "Isabella," She air-kissed my cheeks. Darling, the buzz is extraordinary. And these pieces. She ran her hand along a jacket made of laboratory-grown crystal fabric. You've outdone yourself. Thank you, Anna. Though I suspect my stepfather might disagree. She smiled wickedly. Ah, yes, Marcus Wellington. I heard he's trying to launch his own luxury line. Knockoffs of last season's trends, I assume. Actually, I pulled up some designs on my tablet. These are his planned showpieces. Notice anything familiar? Anna's eyes narrowed as she swiped through the images. These are remarkably similar to your early sketches. The ones you showed me last year. The ones I deliberately leaked, you mean? I switched to another screen, showing trademark registrations and patent applications. Everything properly documented and dated, of course. Oh, you delicious creature. She laughed. You knew he tried to steal your work. Marcus has been copying other designers for years. I just gave him the perfect opportunity to copy mine. I gestured to the busy studio. While he was focused on my failing boutique, we built this. Every piece protected, every innovation patented. My phone buzzed again. More missed calls from Marcus, plus increasingly frantic texts from my mother. Isabella, what's happening? Marcus is furious. Darling, please call us. The news is saying you're showing at Paris Fashion Week. Finally, a message from Sophia. OMG sis, you're trending. Marcus is having a meltdown. This is epic. Kate appeared at my elbow. Marcus's team just realized the boutique is empty. No equipment, no patterns, no real inventory. They're calling his lawyers. Right on schedule. I checked the time. Is everything ready for the press conference? She nodded. Live stream set up, journalists arriving, and she smirked. Marcus just requested an invitation. Perfect. I smoothed my dress. One of my most sophisticated designs, naturally. Let's give him a front row seat to his own humiliation. The press conference room filled quickly. Fashion journalists, industry insiders, and social media influencers packed the space, all eager to understand how an apparently struggling designer had secretly built one of the most anticipated luxury brands of the year. I spotted Marcus in the back, his face dark with rage, flanked by his lawyers. My mother sat beside him, looking confused but proud. And there was Sophia, grinning and filming everything on her phone. Good morning, I began, taking the podium. Thank you all for coming. Today, Isabella Harrison Designs is proud to announce our debut at Paris Fashion Week, featuring innovations that will redefine luxury fashion. Screens around the room lit up, showcasing my real collection. Gasps and murmurs filled the air as journalists saw the technological innovations, the architectural designs, the perfect fusion of art and engineering. Every piece is fully protected by international patents and trademarks, I continued, my eyes finding Marcus. We've spent 2 years developing these innovations in secret while maintaining a decoy location to prevent industrial espionage. Marcus's lawyers were frantically whispering to him now, likely explaining how thoroughly he'd been outmaneuvered. We've also discovered attempts to copy our early designs, I added, triggering another round of whispers. Fortunately, we anticipated such attempts and can prove the provenance of every original concept. The questions began flying. How did you keep this secret? Who funded the development? Is it true the collection is already sold out to private buyers? I answered each one carefully, watching Marcus's face grow darker with every revelation. His dream of launching a luxury brand was crumbling. After all, Who would back him now that he'd been exposed as attempting to copy his stepdaughter's work? When the formal presentation ended, Marcus tried to approach the podium, but security smoothly intercepted him. I'd learned from the best, after all, him, about controlling access and managing optics. Isabella, he called out, loud enough for nearby journalists to hear. You ungrateful little Mr. Wellington. I cut him off smoothly. All legal correspondence should go through our attorneys. Though I should warn you, attempting to seize a company you don't actually own could be considered corporate fraud. He froze. What do you mean? Don't know. I smiled, channeling his own condescending expression. Check the paperwork, Marcus. Everything you thought you were funding was a shell company. The real Isabella Harrison Designs has different investors, different contracts, and different ownership. But thank you for the early lessons in business strategy. They proved quite valuable. As security escorted him out, I caught my mother's eye. She was crying, but smiling too. Sophia ran up and hugged me, whispering, "That was amazing. Can I intern for you this summer?" Later in my office, Kate brought in a stack of media coverage. The story was everywhere. Young designer outsmarts corporate takeover, fashion's new tech revolutionary, the secret success of Isabella Harrison. My phone buzzed one final time. A message from Marcus. You'll regret this. I made you. I typed back. No, you underestimated me. The regret is entirely yours. Then I turned back to my team. We had a Paris Fashion Week show to prepare, and this was just the beginning. Paris Fashion Week, the pinnacle of haute couture, where legends are made or destroyed in 15 minutes on a runway. I stood backstage at the Grand Palais, watching my team prepare for the moment that would define Isabella Harrison Designs forever. Marcus is here, Kate murmured, tablet in hand. Front row, with his lawyers. They filed another injunction this morning. I smiled, adjusting a model's collar. How many does that make? 6 in 3 weeks, all dismissed. Though he did manage to free some of your old accounts. The empty ones, I confirmed. How's Mom doing? Kate glanced at her tablet. She's in her seat. Sophia's with her. And the video you asked for is ready. The last 3 weeks had been a whirlwind of preparations and legal maneuvers. Marcus, desperate to salvage his reputation, had tried everything to stop my show. Each attempt had only generated more publicity, more interest, more proof that he was exactly what I painted him to be. A man who built his success by stealing from others. 5 minutes. The stage manager called out. I gathered my team. Everyone knows their roles. We've prepared for this moment for 2 years. Now let's show the world what real innovation looks like. The lights dimmed. The music began, a haunting melody I'd commissioned specifically for this show. The massive screens above the runway flickered to life, showing the journey of Isabella Harrison Designs from that small Brooklyn boutique to this moment. Then, the first model emerged. The crowd gasped as my crystal fabric jacket caught the light, refracting it into thousands of rainbow patterns. Each movement created new colors, new designs, new possibilities. The technology we developed didn't just make beautiful clothes, it redefined what clothing could be. More looks followed. The color-changing gown that responded to sound. The architectural pieces that transformed on the runway. The sustainable fabrics that looked like liquid metal but felt like silk. Each innovation perfectly documented, patented, and protected. From my position backstage, I could see Marcus's face growing darker with each new revelation. He thought my little boutique was producing simple dresses and basic designs. Now he was watching 2 years of secret innovation parade past him, knowing he couldn't touch any of it. Halfway through the show, the screens changed. Now they showed correspondence, contracts, and designs, dated and documented evidence of every attempt Marcus had made to steal my work. Interspersed were clips from security cameras, showing his team breaking into my decoy studio, trying to steal what they thought were my secrets. The fashion world is brutal, but it despises thieves more than failures. The final look was my masterpiece, a wedding gown that combined every innovation we developed. As the model reached the end of the runway, the dress began to transform, each layer revealing new patterns, new technologies, new possibilities. The audience rose in a standing ovation before the show even ended. In the chaos that followed, I made my way to where my mother sat, still applauding, tears streaming down her face. "Isabella," she whispered, hugging me tight. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because Marcus would have used you to stop me," I said gently. "He had to believe he was in control." "He's ruined," Sophia announced gleefully, showing me her phone. Stock in Marcus's companies was plummeting as news of his attempted theft spread. Major retailers were canceling contracts, unwilling to be associated with proven plagiarism. "Ms. Harrison," journalists swarmed around us. "How does it feel to be the breakout star of Paris Fashion Week? Is it true you've already received orders worth over $50 million? Will you press charges against Marcus Wellington?" I held up my hand for quiet. Isabella Harrison Designs represents a new era in fashion, one built on innovation, integrity, and imagination. We've proven that success doesn't come from stealing others' dreams, but from believing in your own. "This isn't over." Marcus's voice cut through the crowd. He looked disheveled, desperate. "I made you. Everything you are, everything you have, it's because of me." "No, Marcus." I turned to face him one last time. "Everything I am is because you taught me exactly what kind of person I didn't want to be. You showed me that true success isn't about crushing others. It's about creating something real." Security moved to escort him out, but he shrugged them off. "Your father was a failure too. That's why he left you nothing but debt." "Actually," I smiled, "he left me his most valuable asset, his belief in me. And his old warehouse in the garment district, the one you never knew about because it was in my mother's name. The one where I built all of this while you were busy mocking my little boutique." The following weeks were a blur of success. Orders poured in from luxury retailers worldwide. Our innovations were featured in technology magazines as well as fashion publications. 3 major museums requested pieces for their permanent collections. Marcus's empire crumbled as quickly as mine rose. Retailers canceled contracts, partners withdrew, and investigations revealed a pattern of theft that went back years. He'd been stealing designs from small creators, crushing them with legal threats when they complained. Now they were all coming forward. My mother filed for divorce. Finally free from his control, she moved into a penthouse apartment I bought her, rediscovering her own strength day by day. Sophia started interning at my company, showing a natural talent for design technology. 1 year later, I stood in my new flagship store on 5th Avenue, watching customers marvel at our latest innovations. The struggling boutique that Marcus had mocked was now a global luxury brand, known for pushing the boundaries of fashion and technology. My phone buzzed. A news alert. Marcus had been indicted for corporate fraud. His lawyers were negotiating a plea deal. "Ms. Harrison?" A young design student approached, clutching a portfolio. "Your story inspired me to pursue my dreams. Would you Would you look at my work? I smiled, remembering my own early dreams. Of course. And please, call me Isabella. Later that night, in my office overlooking the city, I opened my father's old sketchbook. His final note was still there, written when he knew he was dying. Success isn't about what others think of you. It's about staying true to your vision, even when no one else believes in it. I'd done more than that. I'd turned his vision into an empire, transformed his old warehouse into a fashion revolution, and proved that the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about building something so magnificent that their attacks become irrelevant. Marcus had taught me one final lesson. Sometimes people underestimate you because they can't imagine you being stronger than they are. Their limitations become their weakness. My phone buzzed again. Anna from Vogue. Darling, what do you say to a cover story? The future of fashion. How Isabella Harrison changed the game. I looked out at the city lights, thinking about that family dinner a year ago, when Marcus thought he was ending my dreams. He never understood that you can't kill a dream by mocking it. You only make it stronger. Yes, I replied. I think it's time to tell the whole story. After all, success isn't just about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. And sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming everything they said you couldn't be. I should have seen it coming. The signs were there, scattered across months of subtle changes at Morgan Technologies. The way Robert Morgan, our CEO, started bringing his son Patrick to executive meetings. The way he'd interrupt my presentations to ask Patrick's opinion, despite his fresh-out-of-college status and complete lack of real-world programming experience. But when you're deep in code, building something revolutionary, it's easy to miss the office politics swirling around you. My name is Michael Sullivan, and for the past 3 years, I've been developing a predictive maintenance system that could revolutionize the manufacturing industry. Not just another monitoring system, but an AI-driven platform that could predict equipment failures weeks before they happened, potentially saving companies millions in downtime and repairs. It started as a small project, something I tinkered with during late nights when the office was empty. I'd spent 15 years in industrial automation, watching factories lose millions to unexpected equipment failures. I knew there had to be a better way. You're onto something big here, Mike, Robert had said 2 years ago when I first showed him the prototype. His eyes had lit up with dollar signs as I demonstrated how the system had predicted a critical failure in our test facility 3 weeks before it happened. Whatever resources you need, they're yours. And he'd meant it back then. The company poured $2 million into development. I built a team, installed sensors throughout partner facilities, gathered data. We worked endless hours, fueled by coffee and the conviction that we were creating something that mattered. The system evolved beyond my wildest expectations. It didn't just predict failures. It learned, adapted, understood the unique patterns of each facility it monitored. The neural network I designed could detect subtleties that even experienced maintenance engineers missed. "This is impressive work," Patrick had said last month, hovering over my shoulder as I fine-tuned the core algorithm. But wouldn't it be better if we simplified it? Made it more accessible? I should have recognized the danger in his words. Patrick, with his fresh MBA and zero programming experience, had been appointed as Project Oversight Director 3 months ago. His suggestions always centered around making things simpler, more marketable, user-friendly, corporate buzzwords that masked his fundamental lack of understanding. The complexity is what makes it powerful, I tried to explain. The multi-layered neural network allows for Yes, yes, he'd cut me off. But think about the average user. They don't need all these advanced features. The average user, as if our clients, major manufacturing corporations with billions in equipment, or casual app users looking for a simple interface. Yesterday, everything came to a head. I was preparing for our biggest client presentation yet, a potential $50 million contract with Global Manufacturing Solutions. 3 years of work, countless sleepless nights, all leading to this moment. Then Robert called me into his office. "Mike, take a seat," he said, not looking up from his monitor. Patrick was already there, practically bouncing with barely contained excitement. "We need to discuss the project's direction." I felt a chill despite the warm office air. "The GMS presentation is ready to go," I said. The system's performance in their pilot facility exceeded all expectations. About that, Robert finally looked at me, his expression carefully neutral. "We've decided to take things in a different direction. Patrick has some excellent ideas for streamlining the system, making it more commercially viable." Streamlining? I leaned forward. "Robert, the complexity is what makes it work. You can't just—" "Actually," Patrick interrupted, "we can. As the new head of development, I'll be overseeing all technical aspects moving forward." The room seemed to tilt slightly. Head of development. Robert cleared his throat. "Yes. We feel the project needs fresh eyes, a new perspective. Patrick has an excellent grasp of market dynamics. He doesn't know the first thing about neural networks." I stood up, my chair scraping back. "The system architecture alone took a year to perfect. You can't just—" "We can, and we are." Robert's voice hardened. "The company owns all intellectual property rights. Your services are no longer required, effective immediately." I looked between them, Robert's stern face, Patrick's smug smile, and understood. This had been the plan all along. Wait until the system was built, then push out the builder. "Security will help you clear out your office," Robert added. "Patrick will handle the GNS presentation next week." As I packed my things under the watchful eye of a security guard, I caught snippets of Patrick's voice from my former office, already on the phone with GMS. "Yes, we're very excited about the streamlined version we'll be presenting." They thought they'd won. Thought they could just take 3 years of my work, slap a new interface on it, and claim it as their own. What they didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that I'd built something special into the system's core architecture. A small subroutine, buried so deep in the code that even a thorough review wouldn't find it. A feature that would activate exactly 90 days after any unauthorized changes to the core neural network architecture. I left quietly that day, carrying my box of personal items past curious coworkers. Let Patrick play with his streamlined version. Let him make his changes, thinking he was improving things. The clock was already ticking. 90 days until the GNS quarterly review. 90 days until they learned what happens when you try to simplify complexity you don't understand. 90 days until my code showed everyone exactly who its real creator was. Walking to my car, I couldn't help but smile. Sometimes the best revenge isn't an explosion. It's a carefully timed revelation. The countdown had begun. 60 days can feel like an eternity when you're waiting for justice. But when you're preparing to expose a multi-million-dollar fraud, time moves surprisingly fast. I spent the first week after my firing in a state of controlled rage, methodically documenting everything. Every email, every meeting note, every line of code I'd written over the past 3 years. My apartment's spare bedroom transformed into an evidence room. Walls covered with printouts and sticky notes tracking the project's evolution. Then came the message from Diana, my former lead systems analyst. "They're breaking it, Mike." Her text read, "Patrick's streamlining is destroying the core functionality. The test results are all over the place." I wasn't surprised. The neural network I'd built was like a delicate ecosystem. Change one part without understanding the whole, and everything falls apart. But I needed details. We met at a small coffee shop far from the office. Diana looked nervous, constantly checking over her shoulder as she slid a USB drive across the table. "Patrick's ordered a complete simplification of the interface," she said, disgust evident in her voice. "He's removing safety checks, bypassing validation protocols. Says they're unnecessarily complex." I picked up the drive, careful to keep my expression neutral. "How's the team taking it?" "Half have resigned already. The ones who stayed." She shook her head. "They're documenting everything, just like you asked." "But Mike," the GMS presentation. She hesitated. "What about it?" "They're faking the results. Patrick couldn't get the system to produce the predictions they promised, so they're manually entering false data. They're going to demonstrate a completely fabricated version to GMS." Perfect. Exactly what I'd expected them to do. Back home, I reviewed the files Diana had brought. Patrick had done exactly what I'd predicted. Stripped away the complex validation systems, removed the redundancy checks, simplified the neural network architecture to something he could understand and take credit for. And in doing so, he'd activated every trigger I'd hidden in the code. You see, the system I'd built wasn't just smart. It was self-aware in a very specific way. It knew its own architecture, understood its own complexity. Any attempt to simplify its core functions would be logged, documented, and stored in an encrypted partition that Patrick didn't even know existed. Every change he made was another piece of evidence, another nail in his coffin. 45 days before the quarterly review, I received another message, this time from Marcus in quality assurance. "Systems throwing weird errors," he wrote. "Random predictions, false positives. Patrick's blaming the hardware, but..." I smiled. The second phase had begun. The system wasn't just logging the changes anymore. It was starting to react to them. Subtle at first, just enough to create doubt. Through my network of former colleagues, I kept tabs on Patrick's increasing desperation. He hired external consultants, brought in efficiency experts, even tried to recruit some of my former team members who had quit. None of it helped. 30 days before the review, the system started showing its teeth. Critical predictions began failing spectacularly. Equipment that the simplified system declared perfectly fine would break down hours later. The neural network, its delicate balance destroyed by Patrick's improvements, was now demonstrating exactly why its complexity was necessary. But Patrick, backed into a corner, did exactly what I'd expected. Instead of admitting failure, he doubled down. "We've got the presentation data ready," Diana reported during another clandestine coffee meeting. "All completely fabricated. They're going to show GMS a perfect prediction record, claim the system is exceeding all benchmarks." "And the real data?" She smiled grimly. "All safely archived, just like you asked. Every failed prediction, every false reading, every piece of evidence showing how they've destroyed the system's functionality." I nodded, feeling a strange calm. The pieces were falling into place. 2 weeks before the review, I made my move. An anonymous email to GMS's Chief Technology Officer. You might want to ask for raw data during the quarterly review. The presentation numbers seem too good to be true. Just enough to plant a seed of doubt. 1 week before the review, Patrick made his final, fatal mistake. In a desperate attempt to fix the system's increasingly erratic behavior, he ordered a complete override of the core neural network protocols. "He's wiped out the original architecture completely," Diana texted, "replaced it with his streamlined version." And with that, the countdown entered its final phase. The hidden subroutine, dormant until now, had been waiting for exactly this moment. When Patrick erased my original architecture, he unknowingly activated the system's final protocol. In my apartment, I'd pulled up the secure terminal I'd maintained. A single command prompt blinked, waiting. I thought about all the nights I'd spent building this system, the pride I'd felt when it first successfully predicted a critical failure, the betrayal in Robert's eyes when he'd chosen nepotism over merit. I typed a single command: "Initialize protocol revelation." The terminal responded: "Protocol activated. Execution in 7 days." 7 days until the quarterly review. 7 days until Patrick would stand in front of GNSA's executive board, ready to present his simplified version of my work. 7 days until everyone would learn what happens when you try to take credit for someone else's genius. I closed the laptop and poured myself a drink. The system was armed, the trap was set, and all the players were in position. Now it was just a matter of waiting for the curtain to rise on the final act. The day of the GNS quarterly review dawned bright and clear. I arrived at Morgan Technology's headquarters at precisely 8:45 a.m., wearing my best suit and carrying a manila envelope. The security guard at the front desk did a double take. "Mr. Sullivan? I thought you." "I have an invitation," I said smoothly, sliding across an email printout. "From GNS's Chief Technology Officer, for the quarterly review presentation." He checked the paper, made a call, then reluctantly handed me a visitor's badge. "They're in the main conference room." I could feel the stares as I walked through the office. Former colleagues quickly looked away, some whispering behind their hands. Through the glass walls of my old office, I caught a glimpse of Patrick in a crisp new suit, frantically reviewing his presentation slides. The main conference room was already filling up. GNS executives in expensive suits mingled with Morgan Technology's management team. Robert Morgan stood at the front, looking confident until he saw me enter. His face went through a fascinating series of emotions: shock, anger, fear, finally settling on forced politeness. "Michael," he said tightly, "this is a private meeting." Actually, a deep voice cut in. I invited him. James Wheeler, GNS's Chief Technology Officer, stepped forward. Given his role in developing the system, I thought his input might be valuable. Robert's forced smile became brittle. "Of course. Though I should mention that Michael is no longer associated with the project." "Yes," Wheeler nodded. "So I've heard. Shall we begin?" I took a seat at the back of the room as Patrick started his presentation. He'd clearly rehearsed extensively, smoothly moving through slides, showing perfect prediction rates, flawless performance metrics, and glowing testimonials. "As you can see," he said, clicking to a particularly dramatic graph, "our streamlined version has achieved a 99.8% accuracy rate in predicting equipment failures." "Impressive," Wheeler commented. "Could we see the raw data behind these results?" Patrick's smile flickered slightly. "Of course, though the technical details might be a bit complex." "Try us," Wheeler said dryly. As Patrick fumbled to pull up the data, I glanced at my watch. 9:27 a.m. Right on schedule, every screen in the room suddenly went black. Just a minor technical. Patrick started, but the words died in his throat as the screens came back to life, now showing a very different presentation. Unauthorized architecture modification detected, announced the system's AI voice, the one Patrick had tried to remove. Initiating comprehensive system audit. The screens filled with scrolling data, the real data, showing every failed prediction, every error, every simplified component that had compromised the system's integrity. But more importantly, it showed the original architecture, my architecture, and exactly how Patrick's changes had systematically destroyed its functionality. "What is this?" Robert demanded, standing up. "This," I said, speaking for the first time, "is what happens when you try to simplify something you don't understand." The system continued its merciless exposition. Split screens showed Patrick's fabricated results alongside the real performance data. Email threads appeared, documenting his orders to fake results and override safety protocols. "The neural network you tried to simplify," I explained, standing up, "wasn't just a collection of algorithms. It was a self-aware system designed to protect itself from exactly this kind of unauthorized modification." "You sabotaged us," Patrick accused, his face red. "No." Wheeler cut in. He protected his work, and apparently just in time. He turned to face Robert. "We were prepared to sign a $50 million contract today. Now I'm wondering what else you've been lying about." Robert's face had turned an interesting shade of gray. "Now, James, let's not be hasty." "Actually," I interrupted, opening my manila envelope, "you might want to see these first." I handed Wheeler a stack of documents. The original system architecture, development logs, and proof of authorship. Also, evidence of how this streamlined version has already failed at 3 test sites, resulting in equipment damage that was covered up. The room erupted in chaos. GMS executives huddled around the documents while Morgan Technology's management team tried desperately to explain. Through it all, the system continued its presentation, methodically exposing every flaw, every lie, every corner cut. Patrick slumped in his chair, his carefully rehearsed confidence shattered. Robert stood frozen, watching 3 years of deception unravel in minutes. Wheeler finally stood up, silencing the room. "I think we've seen enough." He turned to me. "Mr. Sullivan, would you be interested in discussing your system, the real system, over lunch? GMS is very interested in working with the actual innovator behind this technology." I smiled. I would be honored. I gathered my documents, then paused at the door. "Oh, and Patrick, the system's core architecture will fully restore itself in about an hour. Try not to break it again." The next few weeks were a blur of meetings, contracts, and new beginnings. GMS not only signed a deal with my newly formed company, but also invested in expanding the system's capabilities. Several of my former team members, including Diana and Marcus, joined me in the venture. Morgan Technologies? They survived, barely. The scandal of the failed deception and Patrick's tampering cost them several major contracts. Robert took early retirement, and Patrick found himself working in middle management at a small software company, where I hear he's learning the value of thorough documentation. As for me, I learned some valuable lessons about trust, about preparation, and about the importance of building systems that can protect themselves. My new company's core value? Complexity isn't a bug, it's a feature. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about building something so robust, so intricate, that it can reveal the truth all on its own. You just have to be patient enough to let the system work. The neural network? It's still running, still predicting, still protecting itself. And every now and then, when I'm reviewing its code late at night, I swear I can feel it humming with satisfaction, like a watchdog that successfully protected its home. Because in the end, good code, like good karma, always finds its way home. 3 months after the GNSD presentation, I received an unexpected email from Robert Morgan. Short, just 2 lines. "You built it better than I understood. I'm sorry we didn't see that sooner." I never replied. Some revelations speak for themselves. Sitting in my new office, overlooking the city, I often think about those 90 days of waiting, about the satisfaction of watching a carefully laid plan unfold exactly as designed. But mostly, I think about the lesson at the heart of it all. In the world of code, as in life, true complexity can't be simplified without consequences. Every system, every person, has layers of intricacy that make them what they are. Try to strip those away. Try to take credit for someone else's genius, and you might just find that the system has ways of fighting back. As for the original code, it's still out there, running in thousands of facilities, predicting failures, preventing disasters. Each installation carries a small signature buried deep in its core. Complexity is not a bug. It's the feature that keeps us honest. Patrick never did figure out how to read that part of the code. But then again, he never really understood what he was trying to simplify in the first place. Some things, after all, are better left complex. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and after 10 years as a senior financial analyst at Global Innovations Corp., I learned that sometimes the biggest threats to a company don't come from outside competitors. They come from the people signing the checks. I still remember my first day at GIC, fresh from getting my CPA, eager to prove myself in one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country. Back then, Marcus Reynolds had just been appointed as CFO, bringing with him an impressive track record of financial growth from various Fortune 500 companies. The key to success in corporate finance, Marcus told me during my first performance review, is knowing which questions not to ask. I should have recognized that red flag, but I was too focused on learning from his supposed expertise. For 8 years, everything seemed perfect. Our quarterly reports showed consistent growth. Our stock price kept climbing, and Marcus was hailed as a financial genius. I worked my way up from junior analyst to senior financial manager, earning a reputation for attention to detail that would eventually save my career and expose a massive fraud. The first hint that something was wrong came during our Q3 review last year. I was reconciling our international subsidiary accounts when I noticed subtle discrepancies in the transfer pricing documentation. Small amounts, skillfully hidden in thousands of legitimate transactions, but they didn't quite add up. "You're being too thorough, Sarah," Marcus said when I brought it to his attention. "These international accounts are complex. Some irregularities are normal." But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I began keeping detailed records of every suspicious transaction, storing copies of documentation on a secure private server, not because I suspected fraud yet, just because it was my job to be thorough. Then came the Asian expansion project. GIC was planning to acquire 3 tech companies in Singapore, and I was assigned to conduct the financial due diligence. That's when I found it. A pattern of systematic fraud, hidden in plain sight. Marcus had created a brilliant scheme. He was using our international acquisitions to hide massive financial manipulations. Money would flow through multiple subsidiaries, getting lost in a maze of transactions before disappearing into offshore accounts. The amounts were staggering. Over $100 million siphoned off over 5 years. I spent 2 weeks documenting everything, cross-referencing transactions, building an airtight case. I knew I had to report it to the board, but I needed to be certain. One mistake could ruin careers, including mine. The night before I planned to present my findings, I received an urgent email from Marcus requesting an early morning meeting. Walking into his office at 7 a.m., I knew something was wrong. 2 security guards stood by his desk, and Janet from HR sat in the corner, her expression carefully neutral. "We've discovered some disturbing information, Sarah," Marcus began, his voice cold. "It seems you've been manipulating our financial records quite extensively." My blood froze as he slid a folder across his desk. Inside were transaction records, modified to make it appear that I had been the one orchestrating the fraud. My signatures had been forged on key documents, timestamps altered, approval chains rearranged. "The evidence is quite clear," Marcus continued. "You've been using your position to hide fraudulent transactions. The board has been notified." I looked at the forged documents, mind racing. He had planned this perfectly, using my own attention to detail against me. Every transaction I had investigated had been doctored to implicate me instead. "Clean out your desk," he ordered, smirking slightly. "Security will escort you out. And Sarah? I'd avoid talking to anyone about this. Fraud charges can lead to serious prison time." I stood there, years of work and reputation crumbling around me. But as I looked at Marcus's smug face, something inside me calmed. He thought he had won. He thought he had destroyed all evidence of his crimes. He hadn't. What Marcus didn't know was that I had learned more than just accounting during my years at GIC. I had learned how digital forensics worked, how to create undeniable audit trails, and most importantly, how to protect truth in a way that no one could erase. As security escorted me out, I heard Marcus already on the phone. "Yes, we caught it in time. The acquisition review can proceed as planned." I smiled slightly, thinking about the external auditors who would arrive next week to review the acquisition. They would find something interesting in their review, something that would make them dig deeper than Marcus ever expected. Because sometimes the best defense isn't fighting back immediately. Sometimes it's letting your enemies think they've won while the evidence they didn't know about slowly comes to light. Marcus thought he had buried the truth under forged documents and false accusations. What he didn't know was that the real evidence was already safely documented, time-stamped, and waiting to be discovered by people he couldn't control. The forensic audit team would arrive in exactly 7 days, and they were about to find the biggest financial fraud case of the decade. Part 2. The preparation. The first thing I did after being escorted out wasn't call a lawyer. Instead, I drove to a small cyber cafe 2 towns over and accessed my secure private server. Marcus had surely seized my work computer, but he didn't know about my personal backup system. "They're doing a complete audit of your department," messaged Tom from it, a friend who had helped me set up my secure documentation system months ago. "Reynolds is having everything scrubbed." Of course he was. But what Marcus didn't understand about modern forensic accounting was that every attempt to hide evidence creates new evidence. From my secure location, I watched through encrypted logs as Marcus's team combed through company servers, methodically altering records. Each change they made was automatically documented by the hidden protocols I'd put in place. My apartment became my war room. 3 laptops displayed different aspects of my counter strategy. Screen 1. The official GIC financial records, being systematically altered by Marcus's team. Screen 2. My secured backup records, showing the original transactions. Screen 3. A real-time log of every change they were making, each one strengthening my case. The external auditors are from Anderson and Price. Messaged Lisa from the finance department. She'd been my mentor when I started and knew something was wrong. Top forensic team. Reynolds is trying to rush them through before the acquisition. Perfect. Anderson and Price had a reputation for being thorough. They wouldn't be rushed. 2 weeks after my firing, Marcus made his first major mistake. In his hurry to cover the money trail, he authorized a series of correcting entries that contradicted previous quarterly statements. Getting questions from the SEC about revised filings, Lisa reported, the changes aren't matching up with the original submissions. I smiled, watching the discrepancies multiply. In financial fraud, it's not the original crime that usually exposes you, it's the cover-up. Then came an unexpected ally. James from the Singapore office reached out to a secure channel. Those acquisition targets you were investigating, he wrote, 2 of them are shell companies. Just empty offices and paperwork. I've got photos and documentation. I thanked him but warned him to stay quiet. The forensic audit would need to discover this independently to be credible. 3 weeks in, signs of Marcus's growing desperation started showing. The auditors were asking too many questions, digging too deep into the international transactions. Sarah, his email read, perhaps we acted hastily. Would you consider consulting on some historical reconciliations? For appropriate compensation, of course. I didn't respond. A few days later, another email arrived offering a generous settlement in exchange for signing some backdated documents. His nervousness was showing. The auditors must have found something. They're working through weekends now, Lisa reported. Marcus has the team recreating transaction histories, but the numbers aren't adding up. Can't make the cash flows balance. Of course they couldn't. International transfers have too many independent verification points. Change one record, and you have to change hundreds of others to maintain consistency. 1 week before the acquisition deadline, I received an urgent message from David, our external counsel, who'd quit after my firing. You need to see this, he wrote, attaching internal memos. They're planning to pin everything on you. Created a whole paper trail of forged authorizations. I checked my secure logs. Every document they forged, every alteration they made, was being independently recorded and timestamped. The truth was growing stronger with every lie. The final week was intense. Marcus's team worked around the clock, trying to patch holes in a fictional narrative. Each fix only created new discrepancies. The auditors found the Singapore shell companies, Lisa messaged. They're expanding the scope of their investigation. Marcus is furious. His final attempt to reach me came through my old supervisor. Whatever you think you have, it won't matter. Take the settlement. Walk away. I sent back one reply, looking forward to the audit findings. The night before the auditor's final presentation to the board, I checked my documentation one last time. Original transaction records, secured and verified, forged document trail, fully documented, alteration timestamps, all logged, Singapore evidence, independently verified, cash flow discrepancies, clearly highlighted. You really think this will work? Tom messaged. They've got the board convinced you're the criminal. That's the beauty of forensic accounting, I replied. Numbers don't lie, even when people do. I went to bed that night feeling strangely calm. Tomorrow, in front of the board and the SEC observers, Marcus would learn why you should never frame a financial analyst who understands digital forensics. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Lisa. Auditors called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. Marcus doesn't know what they found. But I did, and tomorrow, everyone else would too. Part 3. The Revelation. The morning of the audit presentation, Global Innovation's headquarters was unusually quiet. Through my sources, I learned that the Anderson and Price team had requested a closed-door session with the full board and SEC representatives. Marcus had no choice but to agree, though he insisted on presenting his version of events first. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, standing confidently at the head of the boardroom. "Before the audit team presents their findings, I want to address the unfortunate situation that led to this review." I watched through Lisa's secure feed as Marcus launched into his carefully prepared narrative. "As you know, we recently discovered significant financial irregularities," he continued. "Thanks to our internal controls, we identified the responsible party, a trusted employee who abused her position." The boardroom door opened, interrupting his speech. Catherine Wong, lead forensic auditor from Anderson and Price, walked in flanked by 2 SEC investigators. "Mr. Reynolds," Catherine said calmly, "I believe we should proceed directly to our findings." Marcus's smile flickered. This wasn't part of his plan. "Of course," he said smoothly, taking a seat. "Though I think you'll find our internal investigation has been quite thorough." "Indeed," Catherine replied, connecting her laptop to the presentation system. "Let's begin with those internal investigations." The screens came to life, displaying a complex timeline of transactions. "What you're about to see," Catherine announced, "is one of the most sophisticated financial fraud schemes we've encountered. And its revelation comes thanks to one of the most detailed forensic documentation trails I've ever seen." Marcus shifted uncomfortably as Catherine began her presentation. "First, let's examine the official records," she said, pulling up GIC's books. "According to these, Sarah Mitchell orchestrated a complex fraud scheme." However, the screen split, showing parallel transaction records. These are the original records, preserved through independent blockchain verification. Notice the timestamps, digital signatures, and authentication chains. The board members leaned forward, studying the discrepancies. Every alteration made to company records over the past month was automatically logged. Catherine continued. Each attempt to hide the original fraud created new evidence of deliberate manipulation. She clicked through a series of slides, revealing the full scope of Marcus's scheme. Shell companies in Singapore with no actual operations. Transfer pricing manipulations hiding money movements. Forged approvals with impossible timestamps. Backdated documents contradicting official filings. But the most damning evidence, Catherine said, comes from the very attempt to frame Ms. Mitchell. The screens show a detailed analysis of the forged documents used against me. "These forgeries contained a fatal flaw," Catherine explained. "They used digital signatures generated after Ms. Mitchell's system access was revoked. In other words, these documents could only have been created by someone with CFO-level authorization." Marcus stood up abruptly. "This is speculation. Actually, one of the SEC investigators cut in. It's evidence, and there's more." The next hour was a methodical destruction of Marcus's entire fraud scheme. Every transaction, every forgery, every attempt at cover-up was exposed in precise detail. In total, Catherine concluded, we've documented $127.3 million in fraudulent transactions over 6 years. The attempt to frame Ms. Mitchell appears to have been triggered by her discovery of the Singapore shell companies. The board chairman looked physically ill. And the acquisition targets? Fake, Catherine confirmed. Empty offices and paid actors. The acquisition was meant to hide the money trail permanently. Marcus tried one last time. These are just technical glitches. These are federal crimes. The SEC investigator interrupted. Mr. Reynolds, I suggest you contact your attorney immediately. What happened next was a blur of activity. Security arrived to escort Marcus out. The SEC investigators began sealing off financial records. The acquisition was immediately halted. By evening, I received a call from the board chairman himself. Ms. Mitchell, he said, sounding exhausted, we owe you an enormous apology and a debt of gratitude. Would you be willing to meet tomorrow to discuss returning to GIC? We need someone with your skills to help clean up this mess. I had a better offer in mind. 1 year later, I'm no longer just a financial analyst. I'm the youngest CFO in GIC's history, leading a completely restructured finance department. The systems I designed to catch Marcus's fraud have become standard practice across the industry. Marcus? He's facing 20 years in federal prison. Turns out we weren't his first target, just the first one who kept better records than he did. Sometimes late at night, reviewing audit reports in my new office, Marcus's old office, I think about that final board meeting. About his face when he realized what had happened. He thought he was framing an ordinary analyst, but what he really did was trigger the most sophisticated forensic trap ever created. The irony. If he'd been honest, I would have helped him improve our financial systems legitimately. But he chose fraud, forgetting the first rule of modern finance. In a digital world, the truth leaves traces that cannot be erased. These days, when I speak at accounting conferences, someone always asks about the case. They want to know if I planned it all from the beginning. I just smile and tell them what I've learned. In finance, the best defense isn't just following rules. It's creating systems where truth can always be verified. Because sometimes, the quiet analyst in the corner office isn't just checking numbers. Sometimes, they're building a shield to protect the entire company from those who would destroy it from within. GIC recovered, stronger than before. Our stock price has doubled since the fraud was exposed, built on a foundation of genuine growth and absolute transparency. Every quarter, when I present our financial results, I remember what my father, also an accountant, always told me. Numbers tell stories, Sarah. Make sure yours tells the truth. Thanks to modern forensic accounting and careful documentation, my story told the truth louder than any lie Marcus could create. And that's a balance sheet I'm proud to stand behind.